The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by my listeners on Patreon. Become a member of our sex-positive discussion groups for as little as $2 a month at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
Shout out to all the sister wives, daddy doms, and motherfuckers. This is Billy Procida, and you're listening to the Man Whore Podcast. Hey, welcome to a very special episode of the show. Do not skip forward. If you're one of those people who skips the intro, this is not a good time to do it. I promise there are no housekeeping or business stuff, no show dates, no fan whore appreciation moments, no ad read in the intro. But there is some explanation of what you're going to hear. If you skip this, it's going to be very confusing. As many of y'all know, I did a live show in Oakland, California a couple months ago. And you're only just hearing it now. The live show was with my youngest sister, Kelly. I thought it would be fun to have an open and honest conversation, in front of an audience with my sisters. I asked both of them, only one agreed to do the show. For the last 5+ years, I've been having these open and honest conversations with regular, everyday, ordinary women, past partners of mine. So I thought nothing of it to do the same thing with my little sister. I mean, even the previous live shows I've done have been with a panel of my exes, right? So I was like, why is it going to be any different? I figured I could do what my other guest today, Effie Blue, brilliantly describes as hot wire intimacy. I thought I'd be able to do that with Kelly because it's the thing that I'm apparently pretty good at. Kelly and I don't really have much of a relationship, and you'll hear more about that during the show. And so maybe it was a bit of a tall order to try to really jumpstart that relationship in front of a paid audience, recorded for thousands and thousands of people later. So to put it succinctly, the show was a bit of a train wreck. Did not go very well. And I can't blame Kelly for not being a performer or not being used to having an intimate conversation in front of strangers. That's fair, because we barely have those intimate conversations privately. Okay, not going to blame her for that. But I was disappointed. So I asked, my friend and professional relationship counselor Effie Blue to come on back to the show and listen through with me. So we played a game. I'm 100% stealing from Love It or Leave It, and we played Okay Stop, where at any point during the conversation, one of us says Okay Stop, and we had a little chat about what we just heard. We ask each other some questions. There are questions about me. There's commentary about Kelly. There's thoughts about my relationship with Kelly. So that's what you're about to listen to. And if the name Effie Blue sounds familiar, it's because it is. She's been on the show before. She recently had a Patreon bonus episode, which is available to all of my $5 and up members. That came out last month. But she was also on the podcast years ago, episode 95, titled Conscious Uncoupling, Polyamory, and Custom Relationships. If you end up digging Effie on this show and you haven't heard that one, I recommend episode 95. I also recommend checking out Effie Blue on the internets at effieblue.com. She also has her own interview podcast series called The Curious Fox Podcast, which is available wherever you're listening to this bad boy. A few technical notes before we move forward and get to the show. One, Effie and I recorded alone in a living room on my regular mic, so that sound quality is going to be what you're used to. The audio from the live show is done with different mics in a live show atmosphere, so you are going to hear a difference in audio quality, just a little bit. It's not bad. Also, we do skip forward at times in the raw audio. So you are not hearing the entire live show raw recording. And that's honestly for your benefit. We skipped through a lot of giggles. I'll just say that much. But I did not edit out anything that was unfair. I did not edit anything to make someone seem a certain way. I didn't take out stuff that makes me look bad or that makes Kelly look good or anything like that. Just in case you get confused at times, if it sounds like we fast forwarded, it's because we did. Lastly, there's a bit of a monkey wrench that I threw into the live show in Oakland. I brought with me on stage 20 numbered manila envelopes filled with TMI facts about Billy. And in the beginning of the show, I auctioned off a squeaky toy, and the woman who won it, at any point in the show, she could squeeze it and shout out a number, and Kelly and I would pause whatever we were talking about and read one of these TMI facts. I've clipped out all of that, partially because it's a bit distracting from the conversation I have with Effie, but also because I am putting it out today as a free bonus episode on Patreon. That's free, as in no money, no credit card needed. So if you dig what you're hearing, if you want to hear those TMI facts, if you want to hear Kelly's reactions to those TMI facts, you can hear that bonus episode for free at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. You can click the posts tab and it should be right at the top, or there will be a link at the top of the about section. I do think I learned, quite a bit about myself from this, both as a brother and as a host, and just a bit as like a person. So normally we listen, to hear why Billy is bad at dating, but let's now hear why Billy's maybe not great at being a brother. Let's get to the Man Whore Podcast Family Night, live from Oakland, with some commentary from Effie Blue. And then my justification was like, you know what? It's that I'm not going to have a heat. I love you all, but I'm not going to have a heat stroke for you. I'm not going to sit here in my own ball sweat for perfect audio. Like people can handle it.
I appreciate it.
But we're back with, so this is, you've heard the intro. I've explained what we're doing here probably. Effie Blue, everybody. Hey.
Hi, Billy. How are you?
I'm good. I am hot, but you have this adorable puppy that
I do.
is going to be my comfort animal during this possibly uncomfortable.
Yes. And he is an official comfort animal.
Oh.
He's an emotional support dog. So.
Wait, he's been well trained in being cute and fluffy?
Exactly. And you will see in a minute, any distress, he'll come and sit with you.
I've genuinely thought the whole support animal thing is like kind of bogus, but this particular dog, I'm actually feeling better when I pet.
Exactly. He's magical.
Yeah. So I've already explained to everybody, why we're here. But what? Let's just tell them again who you are. What do you do? What are your credentials? Why are you qualified to hold me to moderate this?
Sure. First of all, I think we're friends, so I think it's a good start. And then in terms of what I do, so I'm a relationship coach. I predominantly work with people who are curious about transitioning into or have hit a roadblock in open relationships. So most of the time I'm working with couples who are considering opening up. I also work with people who are solo, who are seeking non-monogamous relationships. And then every now and then I get involved with my friends' relationships of all sorts.
Most epically, the conscious uncoupling party you threw.
Yes, exactly. I think we talked about that. I am known for throwing a conscious uncoupling party to a couple of my very good friends. Who went really well, who we're also friends, so it worked. I also I get involved with some family stuff, which I know that's what we're here for. I am generally interested in relationships, human relationships. And although I focus on romantic relationships and non-monogamy, I think relationships are relationships. I think we are, as humans, are built to connect in a certain way, and we choose those connections with different people, and they manifest differently. But I think the mechanics of a relationship is pretty much the same across the board.
Yeah, and that's why I even wanted to do this show in the first place was, I think we forget that familial relationships are relationships. Absolutely. Just like friendships and fuck buddies and romantic partners.
Absolutely.
And what are some of the things that where are some of the other crossovers you find between familial relationships and these other ones that we normally are so stressed? We're usually so stressed, like, how do I talk to my partner? How do I do this?
Sure.
And then it's like they're the same tools as talking to your dad.
Sure.
right?
Yeah. So let me blow your mind a little bit. In fact, those familial relationships are the first relationships that we know. And they write our model for relationships in the first place. So think about it this way: when the human infant is born, it's a blob. It doesn't really know. It can't really take care of itself. It's like a crying, shitting, eating, and nothing else blob who can't do anything in the world. And as a part of that survival system, what we do know is to survive, right? So we're born, old brain, our reptile brain, our amygdala is essentially programmed to survive. As a part of that survival, one big instinct is to belong, to attach, because we know that as a newborn, we are incapable of taking care of ourselves. So we are there to bond, to connect, to make those first attachments, and that's often with our primary caregivers. For most of us, that's a mom and a dad, right? And within that connection comes the first relationship. So that first relationship to your mom, to your dad, to your immediate family are the foundations of relationships for the future. So any kind of connection that you have, that you've built within your home, is the foundations, and I call it the code, like the operating system code for relationships. So you take a lot of that learning and you apply it to friendships first, to romantic relationships, to colleagues, to all those places. But everything, the way that you operate in those relationships started at home with your family.
So we're going to play, I'm going to steal this from Pod Save America, but we're going to play Okay Stop, but it's like a long version of it.
Okay.
And so at any point in time when, one of us, mostly you, feels like you have a question or a comment on what you're hearing, just say, okay, stop, and I'm going to stop the audio and we'll chat about it.
Cool.
I'm so hyped. Before we get to our guest of honor, I want to thank our sponsor for tonight for helping making this happen, MotorBunny.com, everyone. Motor Bunny is a straddle-style vibrator. Picture it like a boat engine with a dildo on it, right? It's powerful. I know, I made the same face when it was in me. It's great. It's so good. Really, honestly, Salesforce should just have a whole room of just Motor Bunnies for relaxation purposes, I think. If you want to check it out, it's a fantastic toy, and you can get $50 off when you use promo code STAYSLUTTY at MotorBunny.com. They're fantastic people. They're also sponsoring ManWhoreCon in August, so we love them. I hope you give them some love, too. Let's bring up our guest of honor without breaking the sound stuff. Everybody, she's my baby sister. I've known her for 24 years, kind of. All right. Let's hear a round of applause. Let's make her very welcome. Oakland, let's welcome her here. Kelly Procida, everybody. Kelly Procida.
Okay, so do your audience know how old she is? Have you done in your intro? She's my baby sister, she's 24.
Yeah, they'll know.
Okay, they know that. Okay, carry on.
How you doing? Isn't she great, everybody? Look at her. All right.
I'm having
She gave me
anxiety.
Yeah. That's anxiety. You gave me body dysmorphia when you were 7. So, okay, that's... You're doing great. All right. Now, you're going to talk into the microphone, or are you just going to smile?
I don't know.
Okay. How are you feeling?
I'm just making eye contact with Morgan.
Uh-huh. Is she your, safety person right now?
Yes.
Morgan's our other sister. She's the... So, Kelly is the youngest. I'm the oldest.
Sophie, no. Sophie, no.
Yeah.
Sophie, down.
Hey, you can take pictures, but just no tagging, please.
Don't tag me.
Kelly, focus.
I'm sorry.
I'm right here.
I'm here.
Do you need some Adderall? We can...
No, I...
Okay. Okay, stop. It's very interesting because, I have to try... this is a show... I want to foster this open and honest conversation, but it's also a show where, I need her to at least, you need to fucking look at me and look in eye contact would have been a good start with this.
She wasn't making eye contact?
It was it was very difficult, and I'm trying to get her talking to the mic, and we prepped all this, but talking to the mic, looking at me, not looking into the audience at Morgan and her friends, and rather she was, I guess, still caught up in being on the stage rather than connecting with me. So that
Is that
was
her usual state?
a version of it. I wouldn't say completely aloof, but yeah, there's a bit of just there's some nervous energy at times. But she's also just a very excited, happy, fun, social person.
Does she become aloof when she's nervous? Because that's a stress response, like what we call aloof, which is like either disassociation or avoidance, is a stress response. So we sometimes tell people, oh, that person's aloof. We can make a judgment that it's because they're wrapped up in themselves or whatever, but often it's a distress response. Do you think it was a distress response?
Oh yeah, I think everything that's going on in this beginning is her being stressed, nervous, anxious, and the problem is, part of our relationship is that we are trying to have one still. So I actually don't know all the things that she struggles with. I know I'm managing how I'm phrasing things, but it's like I know she's had certain struggles, but I don't know much about them. They're more like I get them via like the newsletter of mom's text versus from her. Like I'm the last one to find out anything in our family about Kelly, because and it's not because like she tells one person and then it has to work its way through to everybody. She tells everybody. She'll tell my mom. She'll tell my dad. She'll tell Morgan. Probably even tell some of our cousins, and she like won't tell me. Like I won't find out. I found out she got a full-time job maybe a week or two after she got it, and I had to find out from mom.
Have you ever addressed it with her?
So many times.
What does she say?
Billy, I talk to you all the time. And it's like, but she doesn't. Like, it's like low-key gaslighting. It's like happy, positive, bright, smiling gaslighting. Like I have no idea what you're talking about. I talk to you so much, but she doesn't.
When you bring up examples, does she meet you there? If you're like, I understand, maybe we talk, but it doesn't mean that you pass on news. Like, do you make that distinction of like, yeah, we might be talking all the time, but like I make the distinction a lot of the time between like conversing and communication. Conversing doesn't always mean that you're communicating. Communication is conversing with the intention to understand and to be understood. So you guys might be talking all the time, but are you communicating?
But we don't even talk all the time.
Okay.
Like that's the thing. Like I don't know what she's like imagined in her mind, but like we don't. And that's the thing. It's like I want to and I try to, and I'm like, I need you to call me sometimes. I don't want to be the only one reaching out. So it's a very common theme, but it's through this, like the fact that she's constantly looking out for Morgan and like she makes more eye contact in the very beginning with Morgan in the audience than with me, and I'm the one she's supposed to talk to.
Okay.
You feeling okay? Because you were like, I'm nervous.
I'm fine.
You're fine. You're so fine. You're Bobby fine, or you're like actually fine? Bobby's mom, and mom is always fine. She's fine. It's okay. She's not going to murder anyone. It's okay.
We should have like kept like a count or tally of how many times Kelly says I'm fine throughout this entire thing.
So did you ever think in your life you'd be on something called a man whore podcast thing? No.
No.
No?
Wasn't a part of the plan.
Well, so I've been doing this show for 5 years, right? I'm not quizzing you.
Time freaking flies.
Yeah, that's your mic. Yep.
So cool.
There we go, Kelly. Something I've always been curious about is like, what is it like having a brother who lives his entire sex life on the internet? Like, you unfollowed me from Instagram like a year or two ago.
I'm actually the one who got your Instagram deleted. I'm kidding. No, I'm really kidding. I really
Remember
tried
when
to
I
help
said, like,
everybody
hey, we
back.
go on stage loving each other and we leave loving each other? That would have been the
I
exception.
tried to help you get it back. It wasn't me.
No,
It
it's
was-
okay.
That would be way
A little
cooler.
closer into the mic.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear
I
your
feel like
wonderful
I'm, like,
voice.
I am loud by nature, so I just feel like it's not even an issue.
You can still hug that mic. But like, is it weird for you when I'm posting whatever thing about butt stuff I'm posting, or?
I'm just like a serial repressor, so like it's fine. Like I just like don't think about it, like ever.
A little closer.
I don't think about it ever.
Okay.
I tossed her what I thought was the easiest softball because we should both know the answer. She unfollowed me on Instagram last year when I posted a series of things on my story for a stranger play scene. I was waking up at like 5:30 in the morning, and I arranged with someone on Bumble who I'd never met before. She hid a key the night before outside of her apartment. And then I snuck over at like 5:30 in the morning, found the key, went into her apartment, quietly came into the door, walked into her bedroom, and she was lying on top of like the sheets, nude, which was the whole plan. And the idea was like I was to wake her up by going down on her. I was posting on Instagram about it, and Kelly called me, texted me these like big, long fucking things about how I am a chauvinist for talking about eating pussy on Instagram, on my Instagram stories. So in my mind, when I ask her this, I'm like, cool, I don't know what the current answer is, but I know there's a feeling. Like, it's fine. I don't think about it. Like, that's not true. So
Well,
any answer would have been a fine answer, but she kind of she gives a non-answer up front.
Right. I mean, actually, she says, I think she's kind of insightful in what she's saying, right? She's saying, I'm a serial repressor. I just don't think about it, right? So to me, that's just that she's avoidant, right? We talked about her being aloof, like those are similar qualities. Those are the common words that we use for people who show up this way, like aloof, avoidant, suppressor, you know. And I imagine that the part of her that was activated by seeing those posts, suppressed, like I call it deep archived the experience and the feelings around it. And so when you do ask her, she in that moment, I believe her when she's like, I don't think about it, because I imagine what would happen is it's like she saw it, she was distressed, she handled it in like crazy texting you, and then she just like buried it deep because it just doesn't feel good, right? So I think when you ask her like that, I believe what she's saying, like I don't think about it, and I think she's also like refusing to think about it in the moment.
Sure. Okay.
That's the other piece of it. You know what I mean?
Okay, that's fair. That's why I've got you here, Effie, so that you can manage like where am I justified in being frustrated and where am I maybe being a little hard on the gal.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it's important also to understand where your sister's experience of the world, right? Like she's avoidant and a suppressor, like self-identified. Why is that happening? What is happening in her experience that's like, instead of dealing with situations and showing up for them and taking them on the chin, why she's like, no, I choose to avoid things, you know? That's like worth knowing. That's like part of her.
Okay.
Yes, Kelly, I jizz. I'm sorry to tell you. I don't know if that was a surprise or not. Microphone in front of face. There we go. Do you want me to take the wine? You going to be all right?
I'm doing great.
You're doing fine?
Yes.
Okay.
I am fine.
You're fine. You're going to a concert with a boy. What are you doing? Who are you? Am I related to you? Are you mom in a Kelly face right now? What is going on?
I don't know.
Okay. Talk to me.
I'm great.
You're
great.
great.
No,
You're
I'm
so
really
fine.
great. Cheers.
Salud.
To us.
Yeah. How's the boy?
Oh, I don't. Yeah, this is. I can't.
Oh,
do
you don't want. You
I
don't.
can't do this. Here.
Uh-huh.
I can't do this.
But you're all smitten. You won't shut up about him anywhere else in Oakland or
That's
San
not
Francisco.
That's not true.
Mm-hmm. What would you like to talk about tonight?
John Benet Ramsey.
Okay, stop. That infuriating answer. Infuriating.
My guess is that the root cause of this is that she's doing some. I am still unclear, which maybe it will become clear, to why she agreed to do that.
I have a feel. So here's my sense. So Kelly, I mean, I come from a why can't we have a nice dinner family, right? And me being the one who always asked why. I was usually the reason we couldn't have a nice dinner. It's like, why can't we have a nice dinner? Billy. So Morgan did what I wish Kelly would have done, where Morgan knew she couldn't and or just did not want to do it. Morgan later expressed that like she might be open to something like this if our relationship was just a little bit stronger. I was like, that's fair. And then like she's like, I don't want us like connecting to be content. I want us to be connected, and then like we could talk on a mic about growing up together, but I want that to happen off mic first. I was like, that's fair. Kelly was down to do it. Now I think why Kelly did it was I think she thought, I'm being a good sister by doing this thing my brother asked me to do, not realizing that her existence in the space was not what I asked for. I needed her to like come connect with me in front of a small little audience. It would have been better for her to say no, I don't think I can, so that I could pursue another show concept. But I think she did it at like thinking like, well, this is what being a good sister is.
That makes sense. Also, I think it's a massive ask.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't ask her to do it the usual way to do it, which is somewhat private. I mean, it's on mic, but it's a private, right? You went hard the other way. You were like, we don't really have a relationship, so let's build one on mic in front of like live audience who paid and traveled hours and hours to be there. I mean, there's a lot of pressure in that room. So it's a big ask. And I think it just, you might just want to think about that. Like,
Absolutely.
It's a big ask. And then the second thing is, on her side, she didn't say no. And I think two things. One, I think maybe she didn't quite grasp what she was getting herself into. I know you say you prepared her, but that's different than her literally thinking herself in the situation going, is this really what I want to do? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think also if she has, just a little bit of things I picked up from you about her, if she's like, a party person and is just like her being in places and just like being gregarious and fun is how she shows up in places, and that's enough. And if that's her history, maybe she thought that she can just walk on stage, be giggly and cute, and that will be enough because that has been enough for her in all the other situations she's been in. And if you suddenly like yanking her into this like situation live on mic and
This high pressure scenario.
and trying to hotwire intimacy, right? This is what you're trying to do.
That's a great way to say.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like a hard ask, It requires like a lot. You know what I mean? The other thing is about this hot wiring intimacy business. All the other categories of people that you mentioned or who've been successful at this are not people that you grew up with. So the stakes are low, right? With your sister, first of all, you have a lot of history. So there's a lot of like what I call cached connections. So you have a history of connections that are sort of settled, right? I mean, repetitive over time. And then trying to like pull her into a situation and like completely like trying to do something else is doing it with somebody you don't know at all is actually a lot easier than doing it with somebody you've known already.
It
for
sounds
that
like
long.
what you're trying to say is what I pitched to her wasn't the healthiest idea.
yes. I think so. I think it's just for both of you. It's just like I think you pitched this idea and had the image of what it's going to look like, and then she sort of thought that she could just show up and look pretty and be sweet and cute and giggly.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna, I don't think she realized the gravity of the ask.
Yeah, so maybe I should have been a little less P.T. Barnum-esque about it.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. But let's carry on. There's a lot
okay.
in here. It's kind of interesting.
Oh my gosh, Kelly, you are. This is about to turn into a concern meeting. Just, are you okay? I mean, how many?
No, I'm really fine. I'm really fine.
Have you ever been in this environment before, like a stage
No.
thing? You weren't a theater kid, right?
No,
Yeah.
I was an athlete. What are you talking about? You know this.
I know, but they don't. And I'm trying to feign conversation because you're being weird.
No, I'm good. And sorry, I'm just watching my sister. She's mouthing, telling me what to say.
Hey, Morgan, you had a turn.
Thank you so much, Chris. I love you.
Well, how'd you feel when you agreed to do the show and Morgan didn't?
I respect.
You
all of
respect
the
it, but there wasn't a little bit of you that went like, "Oh, come on, I'm gonna." No, a little bit of resentment.
She can do no wrong.
She can do no wrong.
I'm kidding.
See,
I'm
Kelly-
kidding. I'm so sorry.
I just want to warn you: when you want to play nice,
No, I am.
then if you put me in a position to check you, I
we
have
could
to
do
check
ASMR.
you. What
We
the-
could.
What's ASMR?
Like the.
Yeah, Kelly, these people paid an admission. If we have to just read all 20 of these to make you
People
uncomfortable.
Make so much money doing ASMR.
Okay, so she's working really hard to fill empty space. So she's not like standing because you're kind of. This is what it looked from the outside.
Sure.
If somebody's looking, it looks like you're really pushing her. You're like, come on, and she's just really hardcore trying to avoid and fill the space.
Yeah.
And like trying to like make the time pass,
In my frustration, what the come on comes from, I've asked 2 or 3 direct questions. And I've asked 3 direct questions. I've tried to ask about what does it feel like me doing this? Tell me about this new guy you're seeing. How'd you feel when Morgan declined to do it and you did? And I'm not getting really much out of it. And so it's honestly me flailing and not knowing what to do. I'm like, normally when I ask questions, like even if I get bad answers, I get answers. And here I'm like, I'm getting full evasions. It's like she should do politics.
She's also, I feel like I'm getting the impression that she's also not used to being in intimate situation. I would imagine that she struggles with intimacy.
Huh. And the sad thing is, like, as her brother, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Because it comes up later, but she, like, I left for boarding school at 14, and then I went straight to college. So I don't know her. I'm trying to get to know her. I've tried to get to know her off mic. I want everyone to know I've tried for years. I mean, she has a boyfriend who passed away like very young, so I don't know if she got like this after that or was like this during it. But I do know that what I've gathered from other members of the family is that like that was a real relationship for her, and like real things happen and real emotions.
Sure. So when that happens to people, first of all, I hope she's in therapy. Sometimes what happens is if you were in a situation where you loved somebody, you feel very connected to them, and they weren't available, right? It could be a couple of things. It could be like a unavailable parent, right? It could also be someone like in her situation, someone that she loves that she lost, right? So sometimes what happens is that the human brain is kind of also designed to avoid pain, right? So it could be that her on a conscious, subconscious, unconscious level, at one of those levels, she decided that she doesn't want to get close to anybody because she thinks that she might have come to a conclusion, her brain, her psyche might have come to the conclusion that people that she loves will disappear.
Sure.
Won't be there, will disappear, will go away. So
could divorce does it take a bigger trauma than divorce to do that? Can divorce do that?
No, it depends on what age your parents divorce.
Well,
so for sure. So sometimes, I mean, that happens a lot. So what sometimes we come to in situations like that, we do, especially in our child minds, we think that people that we love go away or may not come back. So in your case, if they separated, got back together, then you have an inconsistent image of your caregivers or people that you love or people that you're connected to. So they come, they go, they come, they go. And as a child, you think that it's something that you have no control over, right? Well, first of all, children think that it's their fault. And the reason why they think that's their fault is because when we're really, really young, if imagine how you interact with a baby, right? Even if you're not your baby, like anything they do.
I only interact with babies that aren't mine. I see babies like, you're so cool, let's hang out.
But imagine when you do hang out with like cute little babies, how impressed you are with anything that they do, right? They giggle and you're like, wow.
Yo, babies giggle. That's so lit.
Exactly. Oh, they like say their first word and everyone's like cheering. So from a young age, you think that you're the center of the world because everything you do gets such a big reaction. So you develop until you realize you're not the center of the world. You kind of think that it's all you're doing. Like you say you're hungry, food appears. You say you're you say you are, you're tired, a bed appears, right? So you you are the center of the world for a while. And when things start going wrong, also you conclude, it's my doing, right? Because I am the center of the world, right? And I think in your sister's case, she may have at some level, some sort of conscious, subconscious, unconscious level, may have decided that it's her doing, like concluded in her psyche that it's her doing that people leaving and coming back and may or may not come back, right? So like a piece of code got written in her operating system that people I love leave.
Or could have gone written.
Yes, could have gotten in. That people I love leave and may or may not come back, right? Gotcha. So when you have that piece of code, it is a logical response to not get close to people. I don't know that's what's happening. I mean, this is me guessing.
Sure.
But that's what might happen with your sister. So that means that what that looks like to the layman, people who we call them, they have an intimacy issue, like an intimacy problem, or aloof, right? They won't get close. Or people say things like, oh my God, they create space, right? Meaning like they just don't want to get close. They don't want to attach to people because they think that if they do, the person is going to leave.
Sure.
It's a part of my job. I listen to people, to what they're saying. I also listen for what they're not saying, right? So a lot of the time when someone's saying something, at the same time, they're choosing not to say something else. So it's kind of interesting to just be attuned to that, right? And then also some people these are not conscious things, so this is why you have to listen. And sometimes we'll just people throw in these what feels like a throwaway line, but the fact that it's like a throwaway line is almost like a flare, like help me flare, but they don't want to say it, so they're just it just like it comes in the form of a throwaway statement, right?
And I want to help. I don't like if I need a little bit of thread to pull.
Sure. So what she said there is she said, I don't want to fuck it up.
Right.
About that relationship, right? So to me, that makes me think that connection or that relationship is tentative. Like she likes him, but she's not sure if he likes her back. That she's worried about that connection, that there's stakes in that connection, right?
This would also be the first serious relationship since that happened.
Exactly, right? That's what it sounds like. It sounds like she's used to just having superficial relationships. She's playing one out right now with you, like what she's used to, which is the superficial connection of like giggles, light, evasive conversation, very surface, avoiding intimacy. I imagine that's what she's like that's how she shows up. And then in this case, in this particular relationship, I think the stakes are higher. I think she thinks that she might fuck it up, and it's precious to her, and she doesn't want to go there, right? So she, at least that's what I hear when I hear her say, "I don't want to fuck it up," right? So I'm just not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to say anything about it.
Okay.
So I don't know, like it's a high. To me, it sounds like a high stakes relationship.
So I don't know what to do as a big brother, and since I didn't get to experience the big brother thing. I left at 14. Didn't get to be the big brother while she grew up. I didn't get to be there when like she had that first boyfriend or things like that. So I'm like, I don't know, what can I offer here? Well, I have this skill set where apparently I guess a lot of the right ideas on relationships for other people, not myself. We know that. And so I was like, maybe I can help there. It's just frustrating because I'm like, I want to be there for you, but like, show me where I can be there for you.
Did you ask her that question?
Not that literal phrasing of a question, but I have tried so much to. There was a period of time where I literally called her every week, and she either wouldn't pick up or didn't call me back, or sometimes would pick up and it'd be very brief, or hey, I can't talk. Can I call you back later tonight? And she would say later tonight, and then not call back ever. And so there's a lot of that. And then there was a point where I said, "Look, Kelly," this is frustrating me. I'm trying and I am reaching out here. So right now I'm not going to call, but I would love for you to call me whenever you can. Because I would like to get to know you better.
Sure.
I don't know you, but I need to know that you're even interested in this relationship. So you can show me that by calling me. And then she wouldn't. And then maybe we had like a couple months at some point where she was, and then gone again.
Do you guys have, are one of your parents over involved? Does your mom need, or are any of your parents have like needy?
None of them are needy to me. I suspect that my dad sometimes can be needy of the other sister who's not on the recording. Because I do know that like when he's going through rough times, he tends to call Morgan. He never calls me for things. Maybe he talks to Kelly more, but like I'll put it this way, I've never seen my dad cry. But I know that my sisters have.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a generational thing. I feel like, I'm not going to go down the path of like toxic masculinity here, but like I think that's a toxic masculinity thing. I think that men of that generation want to bring up boys that are like into man, and they want to set example, and then like
and
the
then
last
my dad
thing,
got me. He's like, "What do I do with this? He cries all the time. What do I do? He won't touch girls, and he cries, and he writes poetry. What do I do?" He didn't know. But I don't think any of them is like, or I don't think either of them are like over involved. But also that's just through my lens, and mine is definitely going to boarding school made it a very different relationship than whatever they went through while I was gone those 4 years, or 8 years, really.
Yeah. And I mean, that would be kind of interesting to see how your sister feels about that. Sometimes if we've experienced what they call enmeshment, when like enmeshment is like with a parent is like happens sometimes if there's a single parent or a parent that has addiction or have their own emotional issues, and they kind of use they view their child as an extension of themselves. There isn't a clear like where I and the other person begins. And then sometimes the child is used for emotional support, and like almost like a friendship that it's nice to be like friends with your mom or dad, but at the same time there needs to be some boundaries where you're not like the emotional support for your parents when you're developing.
Right. You don't want to be the parent in the relationship as the child.
Right. And sometimes if that happens, what you end up getting is this kind of like the avoidant attachment where you feel like if you get too close, you're gonna get engulfed into something and you're gonna lose like a sense of yourself.
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on, so I'd have to speak to her. But the other thing that I would just between you two, just ask her what she wants the relationship to look like.
Yeah.
Right. So like
But when she goes like, I don't know, just like let's say it's something like I don't know, or I just don't want us to be fighting, or I just want us to like have fun. Like, what if it's as surface level as that? Because I don't enjoy those types of surface level relationships.
You can. So when she's like, I want to have fun, you can ask her what that looks like.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, what does that look like when I'm in New York and you're in San Francisco?
Right. And
like, I guess I want to know, where do I fit? Like, where do I fit in your needs? Like, how can I be a better brother for you? Like, I want to be there for you when she's had a lot of tragic shit happen. I want to be able to be there when these things happen. I want to celebrate her getting a job. I want to celebrate the new boyfriend, and I want to be able to be there for her in whatever way she needs when that boyfriend ends, or when she loses that job, or when she doesn't know what to do with her $1,000 worth of parking ticket, whatever. Like, I want to be there for her, you know? And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I understand what you want.
Sure.
You kind of have to understand what she wants,
yeah.
right? She might just not want that relationship. Or at least she might not want it in a way that you imagine it to be.
And I can deal with that if she can be clear about it.
Yeah.
Because I've always been a fan of, like, family, like, because family has never been an excuse for me on things. Like, I think genetics gets you a lot of extra freebies, and then eventually it will run out. I don't think it's this forever bowl that you just get to always like use up. And so if she's like, look, I just don't feel that, like, I can be okay with that, and we're gonna see each other at the things, and every once in a while we say hey, and we do the newsletter updates. I'm okay with that if you're clear about it. But if you tell me, oh, but you're my big brother and I want to do this, and then you're not following up, that's where the dissonance is for me. Where it's like, you're telling me you want this, you're not acting like it, and that's confusing for me.
Sure.
It's like the chick who's like, you're dating, she's like, no, I definitely want to be dating, but doesn't give you the time and acts like you're not important.
Yeah. No, I understand. So again, you have clarity and you've come to the conclusion where you can, like, family goes so far, at some point, it is an independent relationship that you need to nurture. Again, that might not be the case for her.
Sure.
Like, she might be like, well, family is forever. So I can't really, I don't want to cut Billy out.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily want to have this, like, involved relationship. So she might be in this, like, ambivalent place. Yeah. Where she might not necessarily have the clarity around family as you do. She might be like, family's forever.
And it's also fine to be family. I mean, my other sister is family forever, but, like, she's also clear about things. So it's like, if you were like, hey, obviously, like, we're always going to be family, but I just don't see us having the deep connection that, like, me and Morgan have. That's okay, but then just don't pretend that you want that. Like,
maybe she does want it and she doesn't know how to have it. Like, this.
I just told her, I was like, start by calling me. Let's start with that. And I've asked her very explicitly, like, let's just start with that. Just, like, call me. Just call me sometimes.
What did she say?
She's like, oh my God, yes, totally. And then doesn't.
I mean, I don't think it's you. The relationships, a relationship is a dynamic. It's not people, right? So in that relationship, in that dynamic, there's you and there's your sister. And it's not about assigning blame. Sure. Just realizing that a relationship is the dynamic. It's a space in between. It's the container, whatever you want to call it, but it's not the people.
Sure.
So in this case, I don't necessarily think I'm not, it doesn't make sense for me to say, oh, it's you. Like, it's not. And the things that you're saying making me, like, coloring in the picture for me, right?
Sure.
So, she's lost a bunch of people. She has a high body count for her age.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem like a stable space. So yeah. I would be interested in talking to her about, like, what does her safe space look like, right? Because I don't think she has one. Maybe your sister is, like, the one safe connection. That's why she's holding on to it so much. So it looks like there's a ton of instability in her life, embodied in people, right? And then there's, like, one anchor, which is your sister. So she might just not be able to connect.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, the data set that she's looking at are people die or leave or unreliable. So the only person that she thinks that has one connection is your sister, and everything else, which you fall under as well, sounds like, is like unstable. So I'm just going to keep it really surface. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah. So I left to boarding. So Kelly's 5 years younger than me. Morgan and I are very close in age. But I left town at 14 to go to boarding school. And I went there for 4 years and then immediately to college, another 4 years. And then I said, fuck you, Jersey, and never really went back. And so, like, I don't know. How was that having a brother who's like your brother and not fucking here? Because when I left, you were like 9.
Yeah, like my last memories are definitely you like locking me in the dog crate. And then like Branson letting me out, and that was like my immediate like, oh my God, like Branson is the one that loves me and like Billy fucking hates me. Also like that one time, remember like when that redheaded girl, she was super weird and like mean in middle school. And this is like my only middle school like memory.
Okay.
She was like being a bitch to you one day, and I was in 2nd grade. But we went to a K-8 middle school, so this was like my only time like being with Morgan and Billy.
Yeah, like I would walk through the halls and see them and be like, "What up?" and they'd be like, "Don't look at me right now." It's like,
but I like also would do weird shit. Like I was so much younger than them because I was like openly an accident, which is fine, but like whatever. And like one day I like didn't want to wear socks, so I like ran away like to my school before it opened, and then they were like gonna call Dyfus because I was just like sitting outside barefoot, like with no socks on, like 6 years old and like crying, being like, I don't want to wear shoes. But that redheaded girl was like being mean to you, and I like went up to her and I like tried to like push her, and I was 8 years old, and you were like, Kelly, like fuck off, you're making me look weird because you're like 6.
do you remember who?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
That's weird. I have no recollection of it. That's like, is that your last memory of me like as a child?
Probably not, but it's like the most
prominent.
Most top of mind.
Okay, so it's interesting, like the memories that she remembers. Like that's the story, right? So the memories you hold on to is a part of the story that you have around the person. So it's always interesting the things people remember. I mean, I get this in my practice all the time. Like couples will recite, you know, the last month of whatever, and they recite completely different stories, right? It doesn't mean that they didn't share the same reality. It's just their attention and what they're extracting out of it to then make it into a cohesive story is different, right?
Yeah.
So, like, her memories are you looking her into a crate,
Apparently, okay.
right? She trying to help you and you going stop, right? So like rejection. It doesn't mean so that's not you, right? That's not Billy. It's just like what she picked up on because for whatever that was going on for her. Like I'm sure they were. I'm not sure actually, but let's say they were like cuddles and like high fives. She just doesn't remember that. It's not a part of the story.
It's so telling that these happen to be the first things she remembers.
Right. I mean, telling, she could also be, I don't know, she could also be in defensive mode right now because she feels like she's on stage and you're not attacking her, but you have expectations.
And I'm also throwing a lot of and this is my nervous tick is like throughout, and it's very prominent when as soon as she starts evading the first few questions, I start jumping into like, am I roasting? Like, I'm just trying to, if the audience isn't going to get some realness out of her, I'm now trying to be like, well, can I make them laugh? Like, what can we do? And I'm starting to make jokes at Kelly's expense.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Which sounds aggressive.
Yeah, because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah. Can I give you a tip of what you can
Please.
do? See if you can be present to yourself more than like pick on your guest.
Sure.
Right? Like I am struggling with this right now because I feel like we're here to have a conversation and we can't get there. It's making me nervous because I have audience here, which is your reality, right?
Yeah.
Instead of speaking to your
I'm
reality,
very nervous. Like maybe after the first few minutes, I'm very nervous during this because I'm like, I know we have a lot. Like I'm thinking, oh, we've got a whole show to do, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like
I'm like, somebody squeeze the panda so we can read the facts.
Yeah. So I know you a little bit, so I know the difference. I don't want to like overextend like how much I know you, but I've seen you in different situations, so I kind of know the different layers. I think this is like pleaser Billy, like feels like very responsible of what's going on in the room right now. Feels like there's like audience, like feeling the expectations of the audience, or at least holding on to a story that the audience are having a shit time, and then you're there to deliver and to entertain and to like provide. Right. You're dealing with somebody who's not complying. And it feels personal because like there's somebody that you love, that you feel like you prepped, and you have some expectations attached to that, and you're like, and you're feeling you're feeling nervous, and you can edit this out if you like, but when you're nervous, you get aggressive. Mm-hmm. Like that's how you lash out a little bit, right? And this has got you in trouble before.
Oh yeah.
And
also hearing your responses to some of this has been like, oh man, I actually like even just listening to you with you, I'm like, oh, I'm being a little bit of a dick.
Yeah, just a little bit, but that's your response. That's your distress response, right? Like when you and I have discussed other things that have happened in the past, I know you enough to know that you're not inherently malicious, but when you're triggered, when you're like pushed a little bit, you do lash out, and that lashing out is a little aggressive. And right now you're being a little aggressive with her. You know, she's like, ah, and you're like, come on, you know. So I think that's what's happening. So I don't know whether she's bringing up those like dark memories as a response. Is she like herself lashing out back, or she's giving you an insight into the story that she has about you? I don't know that. That's a question that only she can answer. But like, it's just worth knowing that's what's going on.
Oh gosh, I told her don't get fucked up before this.
No,
It's
I'm
bad
really not
content.
fucked up. I'm just like weird.
Okay, but what was that like? I mean, do you remember high school?
My high school?
Yeah, because I was gone when you were in high school.
Yeah,
I wasn't
was
here.
like an only child. It was fun. It was like, no, it was definitely difficult. It was not an easy experience being alone with mom and dad during that time. But like, I was fine. I did great. I was hip. I was fun. I was hotter than ever. I was a
Remember, I just want to remind you. I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm going to remind you one last time.
Okay,
if
I'll
you
talk
fib
to
and you're
you
not
later.
honest, I am put in a position where I have to check you.
No, it was real. I
So
will speak vaguely. It was really fucking hard, but I got through it.
what was? There you go. That was an honest
I will not
answer.
speak specifically. Mazel fucking.
Well, I'm more
tov.
interested in like I'm more interested not in like any like what it looked like visually. I'm interested in like what did it feel like the emotions of that.
Well, as I mentioned,
'Cause, like, remember,
multiple times
I also-
before, serial repressor. But I remember it felt like it definitely felt super lonely. But
Because remember, I was also away at boarding school, and it almost was like I didn't have y'all there either. So like it was kind of in reverse. So I would come home to this family that like I'm kind of a part of. Honestly, at times it felt like I was a cousin. You know, it was like, oh, we know him, we like him, we know things about him. He's
I know,
weird.
but we love our cousins, so like that's a compliment.
Sure, but
We like our cousins. I like some of our cousins more than I like you guys. I don't know.
I mean, I definitely
I
know
love
that.
Travis and Mia.
I know that, but like I already not growing up, not having friends, and then I had this family where like you all were nothing but cool kids because like you two are who you are, right?
I am way more socially awkward than you're giving.
Right,
me
but
credit
y'all are
for.
popular and like generally attractive to the public, and like people like you being around you.
Oh, I
and
want
then
to
I
stop
was
you
this.
right there. People did not like me.
You were
Especially
surrounded
in
by
high school.
friends.
People did. I think you have this like perception of like, oh my god, it was like a fairy tale land. Like people did not like me in high school. I got pictures of me lit on fire, and then people mobile uploaded pictures of them lighting pictures of me on fire to Facebook. It was a
Sure.
whole situation. I had to change the way I walked to math class because this guy used to call me a slut in the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
It was not like as glamorous as you make it out to be, and I just want to take a second to like put that in perspective.
No,
It's not all rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah, I appreciate.
Okay, stop. Can I give you a pro tip?
Please.
So I'm actually just working on I'm going to publish this in an article, so I'll give you like an insider's. So the word but is a tiny little word that is really, really impactful. So the way our grammar works, English grammar works, is that when you say but, you're essentially negating the sentence beforehand, right? So the worst culprits are things like, I'm sorry, but, I love you, but, right? Like, that's like, she's just like, no, because all you're saying is what I've just said is no longer valid, and everything that I'm going to say after this is what I'm going to say. So like, I love you, but, you know, I don't want to live with you, right? Really, the only relevant part of that sentence is I don't want to live with you, right? So that's just like, so the other piece of that is, you know that a conversation is derailed if people are starting their sentences with but, right? So when you say, I hear you, but, what you're saying is, I hear you, I don't care about what you've just said, but now I'm going to tell you the thing that is right. So
Even though she just gave us like probably the first truly real moment in this first like 20 minutes.
right.
Yeah.
So if you were ever going to do this again with her, what I would suggest is, I hear you, and this is how I feel about it. So you're really like hearing her and reflecting on it live, and she feels like she's heard, and you're like reflecting on it, and just but going like you say something, I hear you, but, and you're like, you didn't though, did you? You didn't hear it. You heard it, but you didn't really. You're just interested in what you have to say next.
It's so interesting hearing the playback and even just picking up on the little things, and like I know I generally interrupt. I know I've interrupted you a lot during this. It's the thing I work on, but a lot of times I will listen. I was editing this week's episode earlier today, and every time I'm interrupting a guest, I'm like, Billy, shut up. What are you doing? No one cares, Billy. Shut your face. No one. You've told this story 20 times in the last 5 years. You do not need to tell this. Just let the guests do their thing. Yeah.
Do you know what you're trying to do? Do you have access to what you're trying to do when you do interrupt?
It depends on the situation. I have gotten better at it, but sometimes I'm trying to be relevant. Sometimes, and this is hard to admit for myself, but sometimes it is me like trying to show my value and worth, or be like you said a thing, cool, I'm going to show you how I'm like also kind of done a thing similar. Like if you're
connection.
Like you're feigning connection. If some people do this on dates, I've caught myself, and I don't think I do this as often on dates anymore. But someone says how they do something for work, something that's serious in their life, whether it's a job or they volunteer on a thing, where you could just say, that's really cool and interesting and awesome. You now try to show like either one up or show your equality to it. Say, oh, you volunteer with kids. Oh yeah, I babysat my sister in high school. Just because like because instead of just giving you the validation of like that's so cool, let me show how I also have done something so you will value me. It's almost like a nervous tick, and I notice a lot of people, men and women, do that in dating.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think sometimes I do that when I'm doing episodes. Again, I don't think it's much.
Sure, yeah, I think the former thing that you've said, which is essentially a self-worth thing, right? It's kind of the core of it is like self-worth. I am trying to prove that I'm worthy. By the way, I am sure 99% of the people on listening to this will know what it feels like to need to prove our worth. It's a very human thing, unfortunately. So I think just be mindful of it, especially since you do this. And the awesome thing about doing this stuff and the stuff that you do is it actually gives you an opportunity to like try new things, be more aware, because you're just going to keep doing it, practice, right? So I would just be mindful of interruptions where you have your ego in it, which is what we're worth, right? Self-worth, like self-worth, ego is all wrapped up. So when your ego is in it, you probably don't need to interrupt. Where your curiosity is where it's okay to interrupt, right? So like a precursor of like, I'm about to say something. If you can find a pause, a millisecond pause to say, is it ego? Is it curiosity? If the answer is ego, breathe out. Don't say anything. If it's curiosity, go ahead.
That has helped me get out of some Twitter fights. It's genuinely what I do sometimes. Do I need to do this, or am I curious about this?
Right.
So it's difficult, but definitely a thing that I work on. And here I'm clearly, doing it a bit because I'm frazzled.
Yeah, but you're frazzled. You're out frazzled. Keep going. Let's see.
That, but like I could never get you to tell me something like that. Apparently, unless there's an audience.
It just like isn't something I think about all the time now. But if you asked me when I was 16, like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I probably would have spoken up about that situation. Cheers! Yeah.
No need to go to the nervous tick. It's okay.
No, I'm so nervous. I could throw up. It's a lot.
Talk to me. This is just like this is just like the relationship where like all I have to do, I try to tell you like, hey, can you call me like once a month, and then it's like
I call you, but
you call me now, but Jesus, it took like 6 years to get you to be like, hey,
I know
can you
I
just
call you, but sometimes you don't call me back. Like you're not perfect either.
I would disagree.
Okay, stop real quick. Is just like I could if I had my phone logs, I'd have receipts for this, for that claim of like, you don't call me, I call you.
Like you got hired for a job and you tell you will have major life events and you tell everyone in the family except me. And I've told you this multiple times. It's a big
no.
bummer.
I feel like that's not fair.
It's so true. Anytime you have a major life thing.
Well, this is also like, this isn't like, and you know what? I don't want to use this as a cop-out because it is kind of one, but also like, I do this thing and it's with everybody, not just you. Like, I'll see a text message and I'll like answer it in my head, but not like in real life.
But you also happen to tell mom, dad, and Morgan kind of every time. Now, can you tell me what you're feeling about this?
Honestly, you want to know what I'm feeling? Thank you so much for asking. This is like the beginning of my comedic career. Like, I actually can't wait. I'm
really?
So happy I did
boy.
it. And I was so nervous. Let me tell you.
I'm glad you
still am. But like, I said it to mom before this. I was like, Mom, like, I always knew I was destined for something wonderful. And I have a wonderful job right now, just FYI. Like, I love my job. Love my job. My manager's not here, but I love my job. And anywho, I knew I was destined for something just outrageous.
Right, comedy.
And now I know it's comedy.
Right. You're
this
big.
Is it. This is my calling.
Yeah.
And I will totally keep you guys posted on the name of my podcast because I don't know what it is yet. But you
Okay, stop. So here's kind of something interesting. I don't know if it runs in the family. I have experienced you make jokes of things to get out of it. Mm-hmm. I wonder whether she's doing the same thing. Like, she's just like leaning on comedy to like release attention away from her.
Attention away from the
questions. Right. And like still entertaining the crowd, like engaged, but like with space, you know, and you do that too.
Sure, but you know, when I do it, it's funny.
You practice it. She doesn't.
I mean, I think her shining light comedic moment is as frustrating as it was. The jumping A. Ramsey line was funny too. I mean, like I was like, don't laugh and encourage her, but that's funny.
Yeah. I think it sounds like she might be just like comedy as a shield, which sometimes you use as well.
Yeah. Hers is comedy and wine as a shield right now in this recording, because I think at this point she's at 3 or 4 glasses in the span of like a couple hours. So I don't exactly know what her pre-gaming was.
Into a big mess by inviting me up here.
No, I don't think I did.
I'm gonna be famous.
Kelly, no, I agree. I love that bit you do where you say no comment every 5 seconds. It's a great bit.
Now I get to do it on my own terms, and I just think that that's beautiful.
Oh. Kelly. This isn't an Instagram post.
Crazy?
You can't just say #beautiful at the end of everything.
I don't hashtag ever.
Well, that's the other thing that fucking enrages me.
Later.
This one here can post literally a picture of waffles and get 600 likes. No words, no caption, no hard work. Just a picture of waffles and you get like hundreds of
Billy,
likes.
it's called building your brand. Learn it.
Yeah?
It's 2019. Build your brand.
You're gonna help me out?
You're doing it right now.
Help me with my.
I'm doing it right now.
Are you?
Fuck, yes.
Yeah, your brand, no comment.
Yeah. Maybe that's. Oh my God, that's the name of my podcast. Cheers, I love you.
It's an ASMR podcast.
Yes, guys, I can't wait to keep you all posted.
Oh my gosh.
This is gonna be great.
All right, I want to transfer over.
Do you want me off now?
No, I want you to talk to me. God damn it.
No,
but you know what I do like is I have a recorded representation of our relationship where I try to talk to you and you really keep me at a distance. And then you call Morgan instead.
At a distance.
Okay, stop. Where you keep me at a distance and where I'm like a bit of a dick. Like, let's be fair.
It's fine.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
The rest of the family is very much in tune with what's going on with
That's
you.
not true. I only talk to mom now like twice a month. It's so sad.
I just want you to know that like they tell me the truth when you're done lying. They tell me, they literally will be like,
I'm so many things, but not.
Like a big thing happened.
Stop. So there's a lot of things I wish came up in this. There were like real things I would have liked to get to. But now where I feel like I think I failed as a host in this from a few spots. One was the nervous tick of instead of finding where we can connect. When my first 1 or 2 tries fail, I'm like, okay, I'll take charge. I'm going to throw out some fucking jokes and hope something sticks, right? I think that was my first failing. I think another failing was not check. You know, I keep threatening the checker and I don't. At that first question, if I had just been straight up, Kelly, here's this story about what happened with that Instagram thing. I don't care if you. I'm not saying you are upset about it. Now I'm just saying you do have feelings about what I do for work. What are they? Or here where she's like, I don't lie, and then checking her right then and there and be like, you do. Here's an example.
Yeah.
Like I think if I had done some of that and then would have opened her up to check me back, I don't mind that. I've invited you, Effie, specifically to check me, right?
Yeah.
So I think I failed there where like I was nervous to hold her to the higher standard I hold others.
Makes sense, right? You also, I think, there's like multiple layers of things happening. I think for you is you also feel like you're split, right? You want to create this intimacy and you have a bunch of expectations with your sister, but then you're also very aware of the audience who you feel need entertainment by you because you feel like you owe it to them.
And for me, entertainment doesn't have to be laughs. They can't, just so long as it's something engaging. So it can be a serious talk so long as we're having a talk.
Yes. So given that though, what's coming up for me when I listen to it is that you have a need for that, the conversation, and your strategy for it is to keep asking your sister questions, and she's keep pushing back or being evasive. I'm wondering what it would be like if you actually stopped asking questions and actually told a story of your own about your sister. And you're like, you know what? Kelly, right? Sorry, I just... Yeah. Like, you know what, Kelly? When that happened and I saw this and you weren't there, like an honest sharing of yourself, a story, like the way that she's told a story about how she got bullied at school or whatever, right? So she actually shared. I wonder what it would be like that if you, instead of like keep asking you do like instead of ask, show, like show her what you want the conversation to look and sound like. Like talk about the time that you found her crying. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know. I'm just making this up. You found her crying and you were concerned as an older brother and you just didn't know how to connect with her and you went away and thinking about like, how can I rectify the situation?
I think all the stories that would have done that were things I thought she would need to be built up to because they are all really heavy. I think when I think of the more emotionally important moments that involve my sister, even not because a lot of them aren't even with her. A lot of them, some of the most intense moments with Kelly's not there. I'm finding out something that happened with Kelly. And there are things that even right now I'm like, I don't know that I'm in a position to share some of these things. They're very intense memories and like emotionally intense memories for me.
Yeah, I mean, you can, so absolutely. And I think maybe it's like, it's like the first question you asked her, right? Which was, how do you feel about having a brother that, talks about his sex life on the internet, right? And if she's like, I don't know, right? So obviously hindsight is 20/20, right? Sure. But just as like takeaways, I wonder if in that moment, your experience of it, which is, I'm really passionate about my work. Like, I think that, even though I share about these in humor, I do think that it moves the needle in the way that we think about sex. And it always at the back of my mind, I'm wondering, how does my family, how does my sisters, who are my peers, feel about it when they see Instagram posts, right?
About eating pussy.
About eating pussy, right? So you kind of meeting her in the middle rather than trying to get it out of her.
So I'll bring you to the answer I think you might feel if you want to come.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Or I'll even kind of give you an answer you can say, I round up to it.
Right. And you're meeting her in the middle, and I feel like questions sometimes can feel like arsenal, like could feel like attack. Like, because you're asking a question, you're off the hook because you asked the question. The other person has to like open up to answer. Yeah. Right. So I'm wondering whether if you were to ever to do it again, imagine the set of questions that you want to ask her and then prepare your side of the answer, right? And then share that. And then, and then she can meet you in the middle rather than you kind of going, answer my question. And she's going, I don't even want to be here. I don't know why I'm here. And all the things that come out. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of this. And this would, I think, also solve your problem of like, there's no conversation, right? But there's two sides of a conversation. You could have taken care of your side of the conversation. And she might have shown up differently because she would be like, oh, I see. Like, we're sharing now. Because technically speaking, it's low stakes for you because you already do this already. And you're just asking questions. You're not really opening up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the high stakes for me is the audience that's their part. But in terms of like it being on the internet, it's like I don't give a fuck.
Right. So just maybe acknowledging, like, you know, when I was at boarding school for 4 years and when I went away from you, you guys, my sisters, were in the back of my mind. Like, I felt disconnected, and at times I was wondering like how I could be a part of the family, you know, and I was wondering what was going on with you. I know you had some hard times. You don't have to reveal the details, and see if you can, like, you could have coaxed her out of it. And I imagine maybe just when you're having a relationship with her, instead of sort of saying, I want to be your older brother, I want to be your older brother, maybe show up with like, I would like a younger sister to be this, you know, and like, what do I want out of a younger sister?
This also just shows the partial bullshit of my thoughts of how families just like, oh, what? They're just other people. Like, we're all just blood and whatever with genetics. Why is that a priority? But at the same time, I'm clearly treating her differently than, like, I would never let any other guest pull this. Like, if I was doing a live one-on-one show, I would never let a guest get away with this bullshit. Because this is, in my opinion, it is bullshit, even though I'm not necessarily handling it the best way, but I would never let someone get away with the evasions that she's doing. And yet clearly I'm scared to push back because she is my sister. And so clearly that does, you know, it does show like I do allow that to have some hierarchy in my life.
You were at the beginning of her life. So it's genetics and all that kind of stuff, but also just like those initial connections set us up for the rest of our lives. So you were there at the beginning of her life. Your parents were there at the beginning of your life, you know, right? All those things. Yes, it's not just genetics. They were just there at the beginning. They were the first imprints. They were the original imprints for these things. So they are different than everything else, you know? And I think it's like partly genetic, but partly because they were there first.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I've tried to do it off mic. It doesn't work, so I'm trying to do it now.
I love you. We talk.
No, we don't. It's just not true. I'm going to open it up the Q&A for a few.
No. But here's the thing.
Oh.
I'm just going to stand for a second because
Please.
I have a camel toe.
Fuck yeah.
You're making me look like a bad guy.
I
just want to hold your hand. Put the wine down. Put it aside. Hold my hand. Okay. You're making me look like the bad guy. I think I'm a really good sister. I've been through a lot of shit, and I really try to be there for you through your shit.
Yeah.
And we're all going through shit all the time, constantly, every single day. Strangers. I'm constantly working on making people feel better about themselves. I'm telling strangers I like their shirts, and that their shoes are cool, and that their eyelashes are super long and pretty, and I'm trying to make everyone feel good, and I'm really just doing my best.
That sounds so tiring, though. Sounds so tiring.
I'm not that tired, which is amazing, but I really, really just like, I just want to put it out there, like, not really because I care what any of you think, even though I like you and you all seem like amazing people, but I'm really not a bad person. I'm not a bad sister. So that's...
And that was all a beautiful, wonderful sentiment if it was all true. If her, like, being there for me through my shit and all that stuff was a constant, true statement, that would be a beautiful, awesome sentiment. I think she has an idealized vision of what the concept of family is, and then fits us into that whatever TV show story like archetype she has found our family to fit in. But it's not the reality.
It's not your reality.
Sure.
I wonder if...
Effie, don't you know that my reality is what the reality is?
Of course.
I am the most objective human in all of Bushwick.
Yes, and we merely serve your reality right here. I wonder, again, I don't, it's really hard to tell from not her being there. I wonder if she feels like she is there for you through your shit. And what that looks like for her is like radical acceptance. I don't know. I don't even know if that is it. Like the fact that...
Define radical acceptance?
Like that all the shit that you're doing, she's still choosing to be your sister and like be there and like not... I don't know. Does she give you a hard time about the things that you do?
Outside of that Instagram cunnilingus story thing, no.
Okay.
She usually doesn't want too much information, but she's like, yeah, do you?
Yeah. Maybe her way of like being there for you, because that's kind of a subjective thing, right? What does that mean? For some people, being there for somebody is like tucking them in at night and bringing them soup, whereas others like texting to say, are you okay? And the others are like not disturbing you because you're sick. right? So like 3 people, say you're sick, and they're going to be there for you. 3 different methods would be somebody comes over, brings soup, tucks you in, takes your temperature, make sure that you have what you need. That's one way. Another way is to like text and say, let me know if you need anything, right? That they're being there for you. And the third way is, I'm not going to call and disturb you or text you because I want you to be able to get rest, right? So there's 3 people may believe that they're being there for you. It just looks different.
I wonder what her love languages are.
Right.
That might be a very interesting
Totally.
thing. Maybe that's the next. Maybe that will be the first thing I'll do, like after this recording, in terms of communicating with her and just be like, "Hey, I'm sending you this link. Like, take one of these fun quizzes."
Yeah.
But secretly, it'll give me some information that might be valuable.
Yeah, sure. I mean, love languages stuff is great. Try to ask her questions like, what does it look like when, what does it take for you to, I mean, you can just send her the love languages stuff, and that's like one contained way of thinking about it. There are limitations with that model. There's a great conversation starter, but just ask her like what makes her feel loved, what makes her feel seen, what makes her feel heard, and how she shows love and how she shows that when she's like holding space for someone, right? So just like ask her more open questions rather than like, what's your love language? Because I think that's like a fun puppy way of talking about it, but I think there's limitations.
Sure.
But it's it's a great start. So like ask her, she feels, or at least she's saying out loud, like she was there for you through your shit. Like what does she feel like she did to be there? It might just be like leaving you be and not judge you might be her way of being there for you.
That's a really fair point.
You know what I mean? I don't know her,
No,
but yeah.
but it is a fair point.
Friends and family pandering. No, but
Okay.
Kelly, like, no one's calling you a bad guy. I'm just saying, like,
There's implications, extensive implications, and I'm enough. Enough is enough.
I don't think implication is the word you wanted, but that's okay. You were so close. I
That was weirdly condescending for no reason.
I went to Boulder. I don't know. Guys.
But Kelly,
No buffs.
Kelly,
I had fun.
I don't want compliments and like I love yous. I want just your time. I want like your
I know.
attention. I want
Bitch,
to.
I'm here.
Kelly. No, yeah, that was a whole thing.
Stop. That's exactly what I mean by I think she thought what I wanted and or needed was her to physically do the show. I don't think she realized that it's actually worse for her to do the show and do this than to say, Billy, I just don't think that's something I can do. Because then I can pursue other options. I can do another kind of show. One other idea I had was doing a show with Metamors because I have a partner who lives in Davis, and maybe I was like, maybe I'll try to connect. Maybe I'll try to what'd you say, hotwire intimacy with like 3 Metamors of mine or something. But I thought this would have been a more compelling.
Yeah.
I thought it would have been a more compelling idea.
I don't want to constantly be the last person in the family who finds out something major about your life. I've told you this for many years because it
fair.
makes me continue to feel like the other and the ugly black sheep of this family. And I would have liked to start talking about it 20 minutes ago, but now I got to go to Q&A.
I love you.
I love you too. But I wish you would talk to me more.
I love you.
Yeah, see, but they all wish you were talking to me more too because it's very tepid.
Okay, can I have one day to start doing better? I don't know what
I mean,
everyone.
today would have been good.
It's just like that day would have been a great day to have started. Like
Yeah.
the next day, the day after is fine. Just like the show would have been a good starting point.
Yeah.
I want to switch to
Circle back. Put it on the cal.
Well,
know?
let's try a Q&A. Let's see if someone else asking
God,
her
I
a
gotta
question
get
is
outta
different.
here.
If you have a question for me, for Kelly, that clock is fast. I will let you know
No,
when
it's fine.
time.
I'm fine. Whatever. 8:30. Who needs?
I booked you months ago, and this concert was very recent. Okay, who's got a question for either me, Kelly,
Morgan.
or both?
Anyone text me?
Kelly, I do
No
need
one
you.
texted.
Kelly.
I'm fine.
Yes.
The question was, Kelly, what do you love about your brother?
His ability to just literally not give a fuck and love himself, even though he has some things he's always dealing with. He loves the shit out of himself.
That's so indicative of how little you know me, because I couldn't hate myself more.
Yeah, but
I am so vocal about
but
it.
you don't, and you're so vocal about it, but you do deep down love yourself because you do what you do every single day, and you don't.
Okay, stop. No, I don't. Everybody, be very clear. I don't love myself. How dare anyone slander me in such a way? Do not spread those lies.
That's interesting. That's how she perceives you. That's interesting, right? That's an interesting insight. That's how she sees you as like somebody. I think when she says you love yourself, I think I'm wondering if she means like in an egotistical kind of way. Like, is that a way of
I
saying?
think she's okay. In the moment when this happened, and even when I first played it back, I thought that this was her being surface level and thinking, what is a good answer? Like, what does a good sister say? What does what's a nice compliment to say? Regardless of if it fits this person, of what's nice to say. Oh, I love how much you love yourself. I thought she was just saying to say it, and you have opened me up to maybe my perception of reality isn't the objective truth.
Right.
Jury's out on it, but it may be. And in that reframing, then maybe that is how she perceives me through what I do for work and the limited posting that she sees of me and such.
Yeah. So I feel like, I mean, so is this a stock answer? And the question number one, is it a stock answer? She's just being nice. I'm not sure. It felt genuine, and I think I think it gives you insight into like how she perceives you, and I think. Also, it might be because you guys don't have a deep connection. She does see the surface of you, which you do present. Like she sees a presentation of you, right? And I know that part of you that comes across that way. But I also happen to know you in a way that a lot of your
He doesn't love himself.
It doesn't like. I don't think that. I think a lot of your work is driven by your pain and like processing your pain, like exercising your pain. I think like some of that's kind of like where that comes from. But I happen to know behind the curtain, right? I think from the outside, a fan maybe would say something like that. It's kind of interesting that your sister is like has a fan's point of view. Like she knows you through your Instagram and the podcasts and the branding, And she doesn't she just hasn't looked behind the curtain. So it's kind of interesting. I feel like that's something like a fan would say. Right. Oh, Billy, a fan might believe that your insecurity is a part of your comedic brand.
Right.
That deep down you actually like confident and know yourself. And like, you're like, I'm all about Billy, go Billy. And my comedic persona is this like insecure guy. You know what I mean? Like I can see how, and it feels like,
Wait, so you're saying that the outside the fan perspective of me is Billy says he's so insecure, but like he's probably playing it up for comedic effect.
Yeah, okay. I'm not saying all your fans, but I can say a fan.
That's a perspective.
Yeah, like a fan can be like, oh, like because the things that you do stuff is so daring, right? So I can see how I can see why a fan would come to that conclusion.
Gotcha.
I just happen to have an insight into so I know it's a slightly different setup, but it's interesting, I guess, how your sister sees you, which, it goes, I mean, I think it's a testament to the lack of intimacy you two have, like closeness that you two have and a deeper connection that you have. To me, that's like, okay, this statement is like, okay, you guys need to spend more time together. And I think,
Kelly, if you're listening, we need to just like go on vacation, just you and me. That's what.
Yeah.
Let's go to Cabo. Come on. I know you like Cabo. Let's go to Cabo. You'll get some good Insta shots. I'll get a tan.
Yeah. I wonder if that's like immersive experience a good idea or like
you don't have like the ability to say, hey, okay, for example, mom and dad, or just maybe dad. Just like not being like the most supportive at first about what you're doing. Like you believed in yourself. Like also you're wearing my date shirt that I bought you for Christmas, which I love.
I know it's my date shirt because she gave it to me for Christmas and said, "This is your date shirt." And I was okay.
It's just like it makes him look. He just like looks like it brings out his eyes. He has really pretty eyes. But you're true to yourself. Like you're not going to change what you're doing because of someone else's opinion, and I appreciate that about you.
Okay.
I also do think you love yourself. Like, no offense. Like, I know you like deal with some insecurities, but like you're, for the most part, like
some insecurities. Okay. I've eaten carbs.
But like Sam, so it's fine.
I think there's a question over here. I saw a hand pop up. No.
Somebody asked Kelly, "What's Billy's like biggest obstacle?"
I don't know.
If you talk to me more, you might know. Oh.
Literally shush. Maybe moving forward. Like, I don't know. Like, I love you to death, but like maybe like I'm really bad at speaking, but like
They can, but the
Like he's an amazing. Like if you want me to speak honestly and candid, like maybe like taking things, digesting them, like and like moving forward.
wait. You mean like centering my career on talking to people from the past might not be healthy?
Talking like I think that there is a part of like therapeutic behavior and revisiting obstacles and like hardships from your past and talking about them is definitely helpful, but there is a part that takes a lot of hard work, and that's what moving forward requires. So you can talk about your past all you want, but like if you harp on it, that's not saying that you do, I'm just speaking generally. Moving forward is a different story, and it takes like 10 times as much work as to revisit something from your past.
Okay, stop. Oh, this is like probably the juiciest. Like the Q&As are like the juiciest bit of the whole thing.
Everyone else should have been doing. Someone else should have hosted it. So maybe I need Terry Gross. I don't know if she was available, but she could. Yeah.
For sure. So it's interesting. So a couple of things that I hear there, right? One of them is, so by the way, the answer to that question, what's the biggest obstacle for Billy?
Yeah, what do you think?
Billy. So I think that's the case for most of us. So I think so a lot of your work is interesting. So I think a lot of your work is sublimation. Do you know what sublimation means? So sublimation is like one of the core defense mechanisms. People talk about Sigmund Freud a lot. So his daughter, Anna Freud, also a Brownian psychologist, came out with the 10 defense mechanisms. So way that we, when we feel defensive, like different strategies. And sublimation happens to be one of those 10 and happens to be the most mature and well-adjusted one. Billy is like, check me out.
I was so nervous this was going to be a negative thing. I didn't know you were going to like low-key compliment me.
No. So I think a lot of your work is sublimation. Essentially, it means that you take the negative things around you and you process it into something that is positive. So, for example, typical examples like Van Gogh took his like depression and made Starry Nights, which is this beautiful, colorful thing, right? So sublimation is like or in like darkest ways, if somebody has like urges for I don't know, this is going to be really dark. Let's say like pedophilia, and they're like, holy shit, I know that's wrong. Instead, I'm gonna, work really hard and donate.
Create SpongeBob SquarePants. Okay, 'cause that's what actually happened.
Oh, is that right? That's scary. Or like, I'm gonna work really hard and I'm gonna give like 20% of my income to child charities, and I'm not gonna go anywhere. So like that's sublimation. Like that's taking something negative and wrapping up into something positive. A lot of art comes from sublimation, right? You see, that's why like, all those like pained artists coming out with beautiful songs, and that's a process of sublimation. So I think some of that is that you're processing, like a lot of your stuff, I think, is sublimation. So I think, but she sees that as a negative quality. And I think what I'm hearing her say is like, oh, you're stuck in the past, like you don't move on. And I think part of that is true, because I think you sometimes do struggle to like move on, let it go. Yeah. I don't think move on, let it go, right? And she values that, which I think explains why she's not holding on to the memories.
Like she moves past without like learning and analyzing, looking into it before, like picking the meat off that bone, and then when that bone is done, when you've done all the sublimation, when you've picked all the meat off the bone, then you can toss that bone into the past, right? Because now you've like digested everything literally. Oh, look, I didn't even plan for that metaphor to be a digesting thing, but it works. You digested it, and now you can move forward.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
I love a good accidental metaphor.
So yes, I think she thinks that moving on without processing is the name of the game. Yeah. So she's like, you're stuck in the past. You don't move on. Look at me. I move on. And I think the answer is the combination of the both of you, right? Sure. You need to process and move on. I think the moving on part that you struggle with, I think for her, she doesn't process. She's just very good at moving on. Sure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Interesting. Let's see if there's any others that are directed at her.
Okay.
That's my take on it.
Yeah.
I think that was like really good. No offense. I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, like, when did she find out, like, what I was doing?
No, I think we knew right from the jump.
Well, I mean, I have the same name as Dad, by the way. So, like, you Google him, you find the
Right.
show.
It was like yeah, but that's not how we knew. I mean, I just remember, like, I don't ever remember like being in the dark and then being like, oh my god, what the fuck? My brother has a sex podcast. Weird. I just remember being like, weird. Billy's starting a sex podcast. Whatever. And then like became the norm, and like it's not something that I even like. Yes, obviously sometimes they.
Okay, so
sometimes
by the way, that's a great question that you could have asked.
Of how, well, I knew, because I knew the answer to it. I knew, like, I told everyone in the family.
But audience don't know that, right?
Sure,
so
sure.
you could be like, how did you find out about me doing? Do you remember how you found out about me doing a,
Sure.
podcast?
What was your initial feeling?
What was your
Oh.
initial feelings? Right?
You want to take over my show? You should do the show.
Yeah.
I'm canceled.
no. I think it's hard doing it with your sister. Like, I think you picked like that. Okay, let's put it this way. I think you attempted something that is actually a lot harder than you realized. I think you had a good idea. You thought it was going to go great. You had a vision of what it's going to go like.
I thought I was going to sell out.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Right. I think the whole thing about this project was like just misaligned all the way through. And I think you should just like learn from it. I think don't beat yourself up over it. Don't beat your sister up about it. I think what you attempted is a huge thing. You wanted to like bring on family that has no experience on being on stage and all that kind of stuff. With, a labored relationship, and you wanted to like hotwire intimacy, have this amazing
You
conversation.
need to trademark that phrase.
Yeah.
Great phrase.
and you want an audience to be like engrossed in it all, and the conversation to flow, and for her to be like open up, like the person hasn't opened up in 23 years, like for immediately open up. I'm like, it's just a bit. You've set yourself a massive goal.
Sure.
I commend you for attempting it. Good job for attempting it. Don't ever stop attempting like crazy ass things. That's what makes you you. I think though, this is one of those situations where it's just you didn't get there, and I think take your sister's advice, move on,
Sure.
and realize it's no one's fault. It's just a massive feat that you embarked on, and this one didn't pay off, right? You're a gambler. You win some, you lose some.
And
you gambled hard, and this
Right.
one didn't work out.
And I was disappointed, and I let myself be disappointed for about 24 to 48 hours. I think by the time I got on the plane to leave the Bay, I think I was letting go. I had let go of that. The content itself was not great.
Yeah.
That I've not been mad about. I told you this before. What I was mad about, and still, I mean, like, I'm not salty enough, like, oh, fuck Kelly. It's just, I am a little salty about it, is that the disrespect of, we scheduled this months in advance. She knew that the show was going to be 7:30 to like 9. I was like, I need you from 7:30 to like 9. So like really more like 7 to 9 because, pre whatever. So that's the block of time. She knew that. And then this boy who's newish in her life asked her to a concert. And it's not her like favorite band. She doesn't have to go to this concert. It's a concert she could say like, hey, I have a prior commitment. But she said, yeah, no, of course. And then like in all of that, didn't realize that by doing so, she's abandoning a commitment she made. And I think that's something Kelly does do a lot. I don't think she knows what true consequences. And I don't think she knows what commitment totally is to like having these obligations. I think she does do a lot of great things. So like Kelly, if you're listening, I'm not saying you abandon every obligation. I'm not saying you're bad at your job. I'm not saying that no one can trust you to do anything, but I do think you do. Not that word, but what can I say there? Do I say and?
Period or and?
Period or and? Period. I think you do all the things you do. Period. I also think that you sometimes don't prioritize things in a great way. I was salty that, and then even when I accepted, when she showed up the day of the recording saying, Billy, I have to be up at this time, I said, okay, look, I will get you out on time. Don't look at the clock because it's fast. Trust me, I get you out on time. And whatever you do, do not say to the audience, hey guys, I got to get going because of a concert, because they paid to be here. And like, that's a fuck you to them. It's also a fuck you to me and what I do for work. So that I genuinely was or slightly am mad about. Or at least feel disrespected
Sure.
about. But the content part, like, I'm willing to let that go.
Yeah.
I get that it was a high ask. Bar didn't clear. It happens. And like that part I do, like, it's fine.
It's a high ask, by the way, it's a high ask for both of you. It's a high ask of yourself to be able to objectively interview your sister.
Or is it, if I am actually going to be incredible about at what I want to do, don't I need to be able to clear that bar?
Right.
That's the rhetorical question that I think then in response.
Yes. And I don't know. I would do some research on like the best interviewers of the world if they've ever interviewed their own family. Actually, I think Seth Meyers does it in one of like he does a family interview. Just watch that and see how that goes.
That's probably comedy, right?
Yeah.
So
well, it's in a show. So
sure.
I don't know. Like, see, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if people who interview, like the good interviewers of the world, would struggle with interviewing their own family. So you set a high bar for your sister and yourself. My humble opinion.
Thank you. Okay.
3 things I picked up from you being mad and feeling disrespected, 100% valid. I know how much you care about your work, and I know like it's very ingrained into who you are because that's what you bring. It's important to you, and I know how professional you are behind the scenes. My guess is that
you worked so hard not to say but.
No, not at all. Because my guess is that your sister, who I am now imagining has a fan perspective of you. Okay. Thinks that you're this goofy guy that kind of flies by the seats of his pants, just like pulls in random people for him, like the Billy Percy, the man whore, right? The humor, the lightness. She might not be aware of how much real work you put into this, right? You come here, you have better notes about your, like you have better notes than I do about my podcast, right? So like, I don't think people realize how much real hard professional work gets into this because the podcast is like fun and light and you're being funny and, all that kind of stuff. You're being honest, but ultimately you're being funny. I imagine that your sister doesn't realize how much genuine hard professional work is done for the show. Mm-hmm. So that might be why she is like, oh yeah, I can just cruise in. Like
I can leave early,
right? So I think it's just like, because I think she does has this, like, as I said, it's like fan perspective of you. That's one thing. The other thing is, I imagine, again, these are things I just imagine from what I picked up, is that she just hasn't had a life where she was accountable. She was kept accountable to things.
And in her defense, we were raised in an affluent area in New Jersey where you don't get held accountable to as much stuff as let's say a low income area or like a black and brown area. Like it's not that she did this, but it's the type of area where if you crash the Beamer you got for your 16th birthday, daddy will likely buy you a new one. Or he won't buy you another Beamer, but like you'll get an Audi, I guess. It's that type of neighborhood.
Yeah. So I think like those are the factors. So you are completely entitled to feeling the way that you do. I totally understand why. Just as a way for you to just like move on is to realize like your sister. I don't think she's consciously doing that. I don't think she set off that evening to be like, I'm gonna fuck up Billy's show. Oh, the third thing I wanted to add to her equation is, the little bit we found out about the new boyfriend, Andy, is that she cares about this person, and we know that she struggles with connection. So I imagine saying no, I can't come, like saying no, I can't do this. I can't come to this. Like, you're inviting me out. I like you. I don't know if you like me. So I'm like, going to be extra tentative about this relationship. So when you ask me out, I'm not going to say no because I don't want you to be like, oh, well, you don't want to come, then I'm going to take somebody else. Right? So I can imagine, it sounds like this relationship is important to her. It's one that she doesn't see the other side. Like, she can't read the other side. Sure. Also, you're saying she's pretty unpopular. I bet there's a lot of guys after her. Yeah. So it sounds like she's also in this relationship where it's now on the other side. Like, she likes this person and she can't tell if they like her or not. So those are the 3 things that I would consider. It comes up for me in her response. Like, 1, this other relationship, she probably is not in a place where she can say no yet, or she worries about it too much. 2, I don't think she realizes to what extent how much work goes into this. You know what I mean? And I don't think that she realizes that. And she just thought that she can come and go. Yeah.
I don't think anything with Kelly is ever truly malicious.
Right.
I find a lot of it to be immaturity or aloofness or whatever. And that frustrates me because I want her to be, I mean, and this this is a, well, Billy, too bad. Like, it's not your problem. Let her learn how she learns. But there's this, there is this, like, I want you to be mature. She had my sister and I had to like really hard yell. We kind of had to semi yell at her, like, you can't just have $1,000 of outstanding parking tickets. You can't be mom. Like, they will have a bench warrant for your arrest. You have to pay these. And like, she makes good money. So we're like, no, you have to pay these. And I would just neither me nor my other sister would let ourselves have $1,000 in parking tickets. And so again, I don't think it's malicious. I just like, it's this frustrating immaturity where I'm like, I want you to, but I know I have to have my hands off there because I'm not her father.
For sure. Yeah. And something I think she does that well to you, that actually you might want to, like, she role models without realizing something. I don't know how genuine it is, but she's like, she says, I love you. I've never heard her say, I love you, but in this recording. I don't know. Yeah. So she's like, I love you. I love you. I love you. I feel like a lot of the time you say, I love you, but I need you to be mature. I love you, but I need you to connect more. I love you, but I want you to call me more. Right. Okay. So maybe instead of like, just spend that period like you did when you were calling her, instead, see if you can spend a period of time where you're just, I love you, period. And I have no expectations of you. Just a while.
100. And she sends me those kinds of texts. A random I love you, period. And I go like, and again, this might just be where we have different viewpoints, what we talked about earlier, where I find that to be weightless. And maybe to her, she's like, I'm going to text Billy that I love him just because I was thinking of him. And I view it as like, oh, you just text me. Or like, maybe you're just doing this because you think this is what you're supposed to do. And I know some of that is also me, and I do need to kind of let go of that viewpoint and accept how people express themselves. But so I think that that would be a great idea to just like, to do what she does.
Exactly.
And try that out.
Yeah. Just like so every now and then, instead of calling her and asking her a bunch of questions, just be like, I love you, sis. I hope you're well. That's it. And leave it to me and see what happens.
Kelly, I love you.
Period. Nice.
Effie, thank you so much for sitting down and helping me out with this.
You're welcome.
Where can people find you, or if they're just like, wow, you're brilliant, does she do Skype sessions? And yes, she does.
Yes, I do.
Tell us where they can find you.
Sure, yeah. I do Skype calls. If you're in New York, we do in-person sessions. You can find me at effieblue.com, EFFY, blue like the sky.com. I'm all over Facebook and Instagram, Coach Effie Blue. And if you're looking for a fun event to go to, I have a community organization that organizes a bunch of events, socials, parties, seminars, panel discussions called Curious Fox. And you can find that all over the internet.
It's a great Facebook page for it, right?
Yeah, wearecuriousfoxes.com. The website is wearecuriousfoxes.com, and everywhere is at wearecuriousfoxes. And then really, those are the best places. I have a new project. Well, I have a revised project, which Play Party Etiquette. We are doing the second edition. So if you're interested in sex parties and you want to know, like,
how... This is the book?
This is the book.
Okay.
It's now getting an amazing revamp illustrated by an incredible artist friend of mine. So if you're interested in sex parties and you're like, how do I do that space? Check out playpartyetiquette.com.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on your show, Billy.
Thanks for having me. Why don't you say goodbye to everybody?
Goodbye, and keep listening to Billy.
Oh, thanks. And if Kelly's listening, you can say goodbye to Kelly.
Goodbye, Kelly. You're doing a good job.
Oh.
At a bare minimum, I guess I could interrupt less. I'm going to actively make sure I'm doing that. Feel free to email me, by the way, with your comments, your questions, your titty pictures, or to say, Billy, you're still interrupting people, at manwhorepod@gmail.com. You can follow me on the socials. Just search Billy Procida. That's Procida. Honestly, I'll pop right up. And if you enjoyed this and you want to hear those TMI facts and you want to hear Kelly's reactions to them, there's a free bonus episode available right now on Patreon at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. You don't need an account to listen to it. But if you do make an account and click the follow button, you'll be updated every time I post free content on that platform. Next week, we return with a Twitter personality I'm fond of, Thought Scholar. That's THOT. That stands for that hoe over there. But we'll get to her next week, everybody. Until then, y'all stay slutty.
Oh God, I'm getting fired. When I watch porn, I usually have MSNBC on in the background.
I love you, Rachel Maddow.
What does that even mean?
This is what I'm living with here. She doesn't know if MSNBC is like an app or a channel or like a Snapchat filter.
Or a scalable.
MSNBC is where they used to play the news, okay? And there's a woman
Yeah.
named Rachel Maddow who's going to change the world when she runs in 2028, okay?